The Center for Audit Quality presents Profession in Focus.
Hello, and welcome to this edition of Profession in Focus. I'm Cindy Fernelli, the Executive Director of the Center for Audit Quality, and I'm very pleased today to have as our guest Christine Botosan, who is a member of the FASB, or the Financial Accounting Standards Board, as well as a former professor at the University of Utah. So welcome, Christine.
Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
So before we get into our questions and answers, I believe you have a disclaimer that you must give.
I do. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that. The FASB's disclaimer is just that the views that I express today are my own, and that is because official positions of the FASB are only reached after extensive due process and deliberation.
Excellent. Well, thanks. We're really glad that you're here. So I want to talk to you, since we have you here as a FASB board member, wearing your FASB board member hat. I think hopefully we all know by now that the new revenue recognition rule is going into effect for a majority of companies on January 1st of 2018.
Correct.
And we've read study after study, heard the chief accountant of the SEC, Wes Bricker, talk about the fact that here in the spring of 2017, a lot of companies perhaps aren't as ready as they should be, despite the fact that FASB and the IASB issued the new standard in 2014. So a long ramp up in order to allow companies to get ready. And yet there is some concern that not all companies are ready.
Right.
What advice would you give a company that's still struggling to implement the new standard to be on time for the January 2018 implementation date?
Yeah, it is. It's hard to believe that it's been almost 4 years since that standard was issued, and revenue is arguably the most important number in the financial statements for many, many companies. It's certainly critically important for the users of financial statements in their evaluation of companies. And as a result, what we have is a major piece of standard setting that deals with a critically important figure in the financial statements. You know, we did a webinar back in the fall, early in the fall, and polled the participants at the time. Very few, not surprisingly, said that they were going to be adopting the standard early. But what we did find from those participants was that about a third of them had already begun the process and were far along, as they described it, in the implementation process. About a third indicated that they were just getting started, and then the remaining third indicated that they had not yet started the process. Now, you did mention the SEC, and I think that their announcement regarding their expectation that SEC registrants would have evaluated and would disclose the potential impact of adopting the revenue standard in their 2016 filings did help provide additional incentive for companies to make progress on that implementation process. I think that it's true that many organizations are not going to see significant changes in their revenue recognition practices, but some are going to, and they may be surprised to find that they have a change in their revenue recognition practices. And as a result, it is very important that all companies at this point be evaluating that standard and how it is going to impact their organization.
Because therein lies the rub, right?
Right.
You don't know whether it's going to greatly impact you until you do that evaluation.
Until you've done that evaluation. And you know, even if there isn't a significant change in revenue recognition practices, all companies are going to see a significant change in the disclosures that are required around revenue. And at this point should be doing an outline of their footnote that they will be providing once they adopt.
Christine, you mentioned that FASB did a webinar back in the fall on revenue recognition, which I'm guessing is archived and people can go back and watch.
Yes.
The CAQ has also issued a resource or it's a tool for audit committees to help them work with the registrant to think of implementation of revenue recognition. Are you aware of any other resources that might be helpful for people as they're ramping up and hopefully plowing through on their implementation schedule?
Yes, there are several different types of resources that are available on the FASB's website. To aid in transition, the boards, both the ISB and FASB, jointly created the Transition Resource Group, or TRG. Over its lifespan, the TRG has received close to 100 submissions, and those have come from all over the world, since it was a joint international and domestic effort. 2/3 of those submissions dealt with questions that were broad in nature, and as a result, the TRG discussed those in their committee meetings, and the remaining 1/3 were more narrow and dealt with issues that were specific to the submitter. So that third of those questions were addressed directly with the company or with the entity that submitted the question. There's currently no outstanding issues in front of the TRG. They've all been addressed. All of the minutes from the meetings of the TRG, the memos that were created by the staff and that were discussed in those meetings are all available on the website. The team has also created an implementation resource guide, which is also available on the TRG's website, and it summarizes all of the revenue-related ASUs and provides a list of the topics that the TRG discussed, with embedded links to the memos and the minutes and the related revenue ASUs. There's also a FASB in Focus summary on topic 606 that some might find helpful as well. And then always the FASB's Technical Inquiry Service is available to constituents that have specific questions.
So I'm going to switch gears a bit now, and I want to talk to you with your former professor hat on, your professorial hat on, and talk to you about the demands. As we all know, the demands on auditors and accountants is constantly changing based on the complex business environment, on new standards that the standard setters put forth, but also I think particularly now because of the advent or the increase in the use of data analytics and other technological tools. So tell me a little bit about how the profession can work with academia to make sure that the students coming out of our colleges and universities have the skill sets that they need to hit the ground running.
Yeah, this is such an important question. It's one that was heavily studied in the not too distant past through an effort by the Pathways Commission that you may have heard about. The Pathways Commission was a joint effort of the AICPA and the AAA, the American Accounting Association, and they issued a report in 2012 that provided a series of recommendations that were intended to address both the challenges that that accounting educators face, but also opportunities that were available to enhance accounting education. I'm not going to go through all of those recommendations today. Obviously, we don't have time, but the report itself and all of the follow-on reports that have been done showing the progress in the implementation of those recommendations is available on the website. But I think for one of the really important recommendations that came out of that report, and one of the important contributions, I think, was bringing to the forefront a discussion of the mixture of faculty that will help prepare students to be successful, as you said, when they hit the workplace. And that it needs to be a mixture of both professionally oriented faculty and PhD degreed faculty, that working together, both of those groups can provide the skill sets that will help students to be successful on day one when they hit the job, but also for the long term. I think more broadly, for accounting education to be enhanced and to meet those demands that this changing environment places on professionals, it's going to take ongoing dialogue between faculty and professionals at a grassroots level. It's going to take ongoing dialogue at an organizational level, such as we saw between the AICPA and the AAA. and the involvement of other entities as well that care about high quality accounting education, and just creative partnerships like the Pathways Commission itself to continue to make progress, because we absolutely have to keep up with what's going on out there.
Finally, I want to ask you about diversity. We all know the importance of having a diverse workforce and leadership within a company and other service organizations. What do you think might help firms and companies, for that matter, reach and promote these underrepresented groups?
Organizations need to establish a virtuous cycle of attracting, recruiting, retaining, and then promoting minority candidates. But that takes a well-defined plan. It takes specific goals that the organization will hold itself accountable for reaching. And it also requires the creation of an inclusive culture in the workplace. I know that this has been a huge focus of the large firms, that they are investing a lot of effort, a lot of resources in making progress on this question. But not all firms have those sorts of resources. There are free resources out there, though, that can help those firms as well. I know that the AICPA National Committee on Diversity and Inclusion has a free recruitment and retention toolkit that is quite helpful and would give some great ideas to firms that may not have that sort of internal support in order to make progress on this question. But I think, you know, the effort is a big one. It takes resources, but it is very important for the future success and ongoing success of the profession. So it is well worth the time and effort that folks are putting into it.
Well, hopefully the next time we talk, those numbers will be better.
Yes.
But for now, I want to thank you so much, Christine, for joining us. And I want to thank all of you for joining us for this edition of Profession in Focus.